In a little over 1 year, I will turn 30 years old. And the closer I get to that milestone, the scarier life seems to become. There seems to be this ever-growing pressure building the closer I get to 30, and it's really, really scary. I'm almost 30, I haven't bought a house yet, I haven't got a proper career, and I don't really have that much money in savings either. So what am I supposed to do? How do I buy a house? How do I develop a career? And how do I save money in this economic climate where everything costs a fortune, wages aren't that great, and houses literally cost 30 years of wage, and banks don't really want to lend you money, even though you're paying rent every single month. They can't lend you money so that you can pay the exact same amount of money in mortgage payments. My name's James, and this is my second channel where I talk about pretty much anything that's on my mind. Anything life related that I'm feeling that I want to rant about, or advice that I want to give to other aspiring YouTubers about becoming a YouTuber. Many different things I talk about, but in this video I'm going to talk about life and reaching 30 years of age almost in just over a year, and the fact that I don't feel like I've accomplished that much in my 20s, or not as much as I would have liked to anyway. If you would have asked me when I was in school what I want to achieve by the time I reach 30, I would probably turn around to you and say, I want to have a good stable career, I want to have bought a house, I might say that I'd like to have a nice car and have a girlfriend or a wife, a kid, but I would probably say that I'd want to have my life figured out. So fast forward 12 years later, 12 years since I've left school, that is crazy to think about, that's flown. We rent a house. I do have a girlfriend who I've been together now with for almost 7 years, and she is lovely. I have a 3-year-old son, but a career, I don't really have much of a career. I'm trying to pursue a YouTube career. Who knows if that'll work out? Hopefully it does, but who knows, it might not. It's all a risk. I work part-time in a shop. I was a chef a few years ago. When I left school, I went to college. I did a couple of years in college doing catering. I did an apprenticeship. I worked at some pubs and some restaurants, even hotels at one point. But it wasn't for me in the end. And I think that's all right. It's all right to change your mind and try and change your career and stuff, and want to do other things. Because, you know, people change. But the weekends, the long hours, it wasn't for me in the end, and I did work my way up the chef ladder, and I was a sous chef in the end, but I decided not to do that in the end. You know, there are other things that I wanted to do. I've got an allotment which I'm sat on right now, and I do that, and obviously I do YouTube as well, and I want to pursue that career hopefully. And I just work part-time at the moment to earn some money and then top it up with YouTube. And that is working for me at the moment. So yes, I am really, really grateful for being able to have a home in the first place, even though it's rented. I'm really grateful for that. And I have a lovely girlfriend. I've got a beautiful 3-year-old son. But, you know, those are the things which I've achieved, but I've not really achieved much else apart from that. Career-wise, I don't feel like I've done that much with that. You know, you get people that have some really well-paying jobs and really good careers. You know, you got like really, really clever people, and they've worked hard to be in the position that they're in. You know, there are many different fields of work out there. You know, surgeons, doctors, you know, pilots, you know, engineers. There are many different jobs out there that pay really, really well that people have worked hard to get into. Sometimes I do think, should I have done things a bit differently? Should I have done something different when I went to college? Should I have gone to university? Because I didn't go to university. Thinking maybe I should have done that. And how? Honestly, how is a a young person supposed to buy a house in this economic climate? It seems as though people can only buy houses nowadays if they win the lottery, inherit a lot of money from a deceased relative, end up landing a really, really, really good job, like a really high paying job, or I don't even know. How are people supposed to get a house in this climate? I don't know. Because when you think about rent, which is a lot, rent prices at the moment are like the same as mortgage repayments, but somehow the banks don't want to lend people the money. They don't want to lend people the money to buy a house and pay back the mortgage. Why is that? Why do they not trust you to pay it back, even if you've been paying rent for the past 10 years? I don't really understand that. Is it really worth getting a mortgage anyway? I mean, it seems to be the only way you can get a house, but when you think about the interest that you have to pay back, it is a lot. It is a lot of interest. Thousands and thousands of pounds of interest on a house. It feels like it's almost impossible when you're paying rent. When you've got other bills as well, which are climbing up: council tax, water, gas, electric, car insurance. Flipping heck, car insurance is expensive. Fuel. The cost of food at the moment is going up. A weekly shop for us can cost up to £100 per week. It is a lot. I grow as much food as I can from my allotment, but still, that isn't enough to bring our food shop down enough. Not substantially anyway. And then childcare. Childcare is very, very expensive. You're talking, childcare can cost more than your rent. That is how much it can cost. It can cost over £1,000 a month for childcare if your child's full time. So when you're thinking about, paying rent, and then you've got childcare, you've got the cost of food, gas, electric, water, all the other stuff in between as well. The list goes on. All the other little bills and all the other spending as well, like, leisure. We still have to enjoy ourselves. How much money do you have left after that? Not a lot. Not a lot at all. Definitely not enough to save up for a deposit for a house. That's all I'm going to say. Banks want 5%, 10% deposit. You're going to have to save probably £20,000 for a deposit for a house in a lot of cases, just for a standard terraced house. I'm not talking about a mansion here. A mansion is out of the question. Don't even think about that. But even just for a bog standard house to buy, you need to scrape together enough money, £10,000, £20,000, £30,000, and then the mortgage payments as well cost about the mortgage payments are then going to be about the same as renting. It's impossible for the average person to scrape enough money together to do that with how much things are. I'm not too sure how they expect people to do this. The sad reality is most people can't buy their own house. And I think that's really sad, because it should be a basic minimum. It should be a right that every person has. Everyone should be able to own their own home, I think. Rather than, most people have to pay rent to a landlord, and the reality is you're either paying their mortgage for them, or you're just making them more money on a house that they already own and will always own and will likely pass down to future generations. That house is going to last pretty much forever, really. They last a very long time, houses, and you're just making more money for them. And yes, on the flip side, if anything goes wrong with the property, they fix it for you, or at least they should do. I know some landlords aren't like that, but you've not got all the building maintenance and all the costs to think about. That is one positive thing when you're renting, and also you're not tied to the property. You can leave whenever you want. You do have the flexibility with that. So there are pros and cons, but I do think that owning a property, it is a good way to go, really, because you've got something to pass down to your children in the future. You've got an asset there, and you own it, it's yours, you know, it's something that you own. Whereas if you're renting, it's dead money really, isn't it? You know, you're paying rent every month and you don't have anything at the end of it. Yes, you have a house, you have somewhere to live, you've got a home, but at the end of it, you don't have anything. You know, after paying, you know, if you rent a house for 30 years, with the amount of money you've spent on rent for 30 years, you probably could buy a house. You know, I'm not going to do the maths, but you probably could buy a house with that money. So if you were to have a mortgage for 30 years, you own a house at the end of it. If you pay rent for 30 years, at the end of it, you have nothing. That's just the way that I look at it. Some people might think differently. That's fine. You can drop your opinions down in the comments below and debate about it. That is absolutely fine. But it's just very, very frustrating, isn't it? With the way things are with the cost of living, like, honestly, it's ridiculous. They put the minimum wage up, but then the price of everything else goes up as well. So it's like a dog chasing its own tail, isn't it? You know, you never really, it's like a vicious circle. It's a catch-22. You know, everything's going up at the exact same time. If anything, it feels like the bills are going up higher and quicker than the wage. You know, I don't actually know that many people in their 20s that own their own house. And if they do own their own house, they've worked very, very, very hard for it, or they've got lucky and they've got parents that have money, and they've had their parents buy the house or give the house to them. So I just keep telling myself that, really, just to reassure myself that as I get closer to 30, it's all right that I don't have a house that I own. And I keep telling myself that it's all right that I don't have a good career. At the end of the day, a job's a job. As long as it pays the bills, that's all right. But you've also got to be happy in the job that you're in. Also, there's pensions to think about. These well-paying jobs have good pensions that allow people to retire when they're in their 50s, by the age of 60 even. The retirement age now is, what is it now? I think 67 for women and 69 for men, is it? I think. By the time I reach that age, retirement age is probably going to be 80. I would not be surprised. Sadly, some people don't even reach retirement age. You know, my dad died when he was 51. And my girlfriend's mum died just a couple of months ago at the age of 52. So, unfortunately, you know, tomorrow is never guaranteed for anyone. I seem to be going off on a bit of a tangent here and a bit of a rant, but yeah, I apologise if this video isn't very structured. I'm just getting all my thoughts out. Yeah, I want to know what you guys think though. Like, what are your opinions on the way the country is? The UK isn't in a very good way at the moment financially. I hear people ranting on about the government all the time with the way everything is going. The government seem to be spending money in all the wrong places, and it's like we're just getting ripped left, right and centre, really, to be honest, aren't we? We just seem to be getting pooped on at every opportunity. So I'm going to wrap this video up now because I feel like I've talked for a very long time. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Am I being silly, you know, feeling like this as I approach 30? Or is this, you know, is this the normal? You know, is it impossible for anyone to buy a house in their 20s? Is it normal for most people in their 20s to not really have a career? You know, I suppose, you know, I do try and be happy. You know, I've got the allotment, I've got a family at home, which I love, and I'm really, really grateful for that. And I've got plenty of hobbies. You know, I enjoy making YouTube videos for the gardening channel, and I've got a lot to be happy about. But I do often find myself wondering, should I have done something differently? Should I have gone to uni? Should I have a house by now? I don't know. But that's the end of this video. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Just a few things to think about. See you later.